Who is the Buddha? What did the Buddha have to express on contentment, on this amazing truth that the Buddha shared called Tendel? Buddha nature. Would Rinpoche be so kind as to share with us what we are to understand from the statement that all sentient beings possess the Buddha nature, Shunyata, and in English, emptiness? Is there a shortcut to nirvana?
I keep sharing about little updates of his health as well. I'm a huge fan of the Master as well. Anything else that Doctor would like to share about? Because going back to the milestone question, is there anything that Doctor can share with us, if it's not too intrusive of us to ask about your experience and meeting with Master Thich Nhat Hanh?
Oh yes, I'm happy to share about it. Interestingly enough, although I have a Vietnamese background myself, as I told you, I first started my first experiences in Buddhism were in the context of Vajrayana Buddhism, then later in Japanese Zen Buddhism, and also, so I really, I went and met many different masters in many different traditions, because I never felt that I had found my teacher, my root teacher. Yes. And in 1982, I went back to Vietnam for the first time after the war. The war had ended in 1975, and I met my family that I had not seen for many years because of the war, and several of my uncles and cousins were students of Master Thich Nhat Hanh. And they told me, oh, you're so lucky because you live in Europe, you can have direct access to our masters anytime. And I was so embarrassed because I didn't know him. I had not yet heard about him. And so when I came back to Europe, I wrote him a letter, and he invited me, and then I went to visit his monastery, and I spent some time with him. And it was one of these life-changing experiences. I remember sitting in one of the first teaching that he was giving, and actually it was a teaching on no coming, no going, no birth, no death. So, and I sat there and I started crying. And it's not because I was sad, not at all. I was actually very happy. But it touched my heart so deeply, It was something like I had the feeling if my heart opened for and I had the feeling that until then, my knowledge of Buddhism had been a bit theoretical, a bit abstract, a bit intellectual. But when I met with him, I had the feeling he was like an embodiment of all these virtues. And that suddenly I understood what compassion really was. And it was so, such a deep emotion to experience that, like a direct transmission of that is compassion, that I was so deeply moved, and it was really a feeling of coming home. And so, yes, so then the relationship was quite obvious, and I became his student, and yeah, I've been so ever since.
Thank you, Doctor, for sharing that experience with us. Doctor, now speaking about GNH and the H in GNH, happiness. Yes. If Doctor can share something with us about happiness, what is happiness to Doctor?
Well, if I may, I would like to speak first about unhappiness, about suffering.
Please do.
Because, as we know, Buddha's teaching starts with suffering. And I believe that if we don't understand the nature of suffering, then we cannot